In 2017, a Neuron paper scanned 17 elite memory athletes and found something awkward. Their brains didn't look like photographic memory mutants. They looked like people who trained navigation. If you're failing to recall names, articles, or what you studied last week, it's not a character flaw. It's an indexing problem. In the next few minutes, I'll give you a Sherlock Holmes-style memory palace protocol for fast recall, and one detail most Mind Palace tutorials get subtly, catastrophically wrong. You've been told memory is about repetition. Grind the flashcards, reread the notes, highlight harder. That advice turns smart adults into anxious scribes copying information they still can't pull up on demand. Stay to the end and you'll get 3 payoffs. The neuroscience reason spatial memory beats trying to remember. The exact encoding format memory champions use that most students skip. And a 3-pass retrieval schedule that makes recall feel instant in meetings, interviews, and exams. But before I show you the protocol, you need to see why Sherlock Holmes's Mind Palace works in fiction and fails for most people in real life. The idea is older than Sherlock by about 2,400 years. Around the 5th century BCE, a poet named Simonides of Chios walked out of a banquet. The roof collapsed, bodies were unrecognizable. Simonides could still identify who was who because he remembered where each person had been sitting. That story becomes the origin myth of the Method of Loci, memory by place. Fast forward to modern times, you watch Sherlock or Hannibal, you hear Mind Palace, and you try to imagine a fancy mansion, marble floors, grand staircases, moody lighting. Your recall improves, but about for a day. Then it leaks. The failure has nothing to do with your imagination. It's caused by something cognitive scientists call cue overload, and I'll show you why it happens after we look at what the lab data says. One more setup detail because it matters. The method of loci isn't visualization. It's a way to turn information into addresses, not just pictures. That distinction is the entire game. The weakest evidence is the obvious one. Memory competitors openly admit what they do. At the World Memory Championships, people aren't born knowing 1,000 digits of pi. They're using structured mnemonics, and the method of loci is the workhorse. Stronger evidence shows up in classic experimental psychology. In 1970, psychologist Gordon Bower published work demonstrating that when participants used the method of loci for word lists, recall jumped dramatically compared to rote rehearsal, not because they concentrated harder, but because they built better retrieval cues. The strongest evidence is neurological. In 2003, neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire and colleagues published in PNAS an fMRI study comparing 10 memory champions with 10 controls. The punchline wasn't champions have bigger brains. The striking differences were in how brain regions interacted during encoding, especially regions tied to spatial navigation and scene construction. Then comes the 2017 paper I mentioned. Martin Dressler and colleagues in Neuron compared 17 memory athletes plus novice participants who trained a mnemonic strategy for weeks, plus a control group. Training nudged novices' brain network patterns towards the athletes. That's the strangest part. Elite memory looked teachable, at least in part, because it leaned on circuits humans already use daily. If this is teachable, why do smart people still build palaces that collapse after 48 hours? The answer is not discipline, it's the type of cue you're building. Your brain doesn't store facts the way a hard drive stores files. It stores them more like a city stores locations. A fact is easier to retrieve when it has an address and multiple routes leading to it. That's why the hippocampus sits at the center of this story. In 1971, neuroscientist John O'Keefe discovered place cells in the hippocampus, neurons that fire for specific locations. Decades later, hippocampus and navigation research earned a 2014 Nobel Prize. A memory palace exploits that design. You attach a new fact to a place your brain already indexes cleanly. your childhood kitchen, the staircase at work, the corner store's entrance. You're not making the memory stronger, you're making the search shorter. Here's the detail most tutorials miss. A place isn't a queue by itself. A place is a slot. If you cram 10 facts into one slot or reuse the same dramatic imagery over and over, you create queue overload. Everything points to everything, and retrieval turns into static. This is where encoding specificity comes in. In 1973, Tulving and Thompson argued that recall depends on the match between encoding cues and retrieval cues. A good palace doesn't just look vivid, it builds cues you can reconstruct under pressure, on a bad sleep night, in a meeting, with someone staring at you. Think of it like espionage tradecraft. A competent spy doesn't hide one document in a drawer and pray. They build dead drops, signals, redundancy, and a map only they can navigate. Your memory palace is that map. Your palaces leak because you built art, not addresses, and because you didn't practice the walk, which is the retrieval route. Here's the Sherlock Holmes Memory Palace Protocol, designed for instant-ish recall, not memory theater. 1. Build a 12-slot route you can walk blindfolded. 6 minutes, once. Pick a real place you know absurdly well, your apartment, your commute, your gym. Choose 12 fixed landmarks in a single direction: door, mat, sink, fridge, couch, lamp. Write the list, keep it permanent. The stability prevents cue overload later. 2. Encode each fact as an actor, action, object scene that violates physics. 2 minutes per set. At each landmark, place one scene, not a collage. Example: need to remember Tulving and Thompson, 1973, encoding specificity? At your fridge, Endel Tulving is gluing a key into the fridge seal, and the key only works when the fridge door is half open. Ridiculous, precise. One slot, one scene, one retrieval handle. 3. Do the 3-pass retrieval walk. Immediate, 24 hours, 7 days, 90 seconds each. Walk the route in your head right after encoding. Do it tomorrow, same time. Do it a week later, but in reverse order. Reverse walking stress tests the addresses and exposes weak slots fast. That's the whole protocol: stable slots, single scene encoding, scheduled retrieval. The worldview shift is simple. Memory isn't storage, it's navigation. When recall fails, it's often because you never built a reliable address or you never practiced the route.